Ghost stories from followers. Want to get creeped out? Then watch this video. I will put the name above of the people who sent me these stories and I will tag them in the video. However, some people wanted to remain anonymous. Crafted by Faye. Hey, so I love your account and have a story. Thank you. It's like creepy but also heartwarming at the same time. So I was born after my grandfather passed away. Clearly, I never got a chance to meet him. When I was around 3 years old, my mom, older sister, and I moved into my grandmother's house for a few years. In her living room, there was an old family portrait from the early 80s of my grandparents and my mother and her siblings. This was the only picture of my grandfather I had ever seen. It started one day when we were cleaning out my grandmother's attic. My mom went down to the first floor of the house and left me up there and said she heard a deep mumbling voice and then me giggling. So she ran upstairs to the attic. I was sitting in one of the corners in front of a chest of my grandfather's from his college years. I was holding a picture of him and a bunch of his fraternity brothers. I ended up pointing him out of 30 young men. So chalked it up to maybe I just recognized facial features, even though he was significantly younger and the photo was in black and white. A few weeks go by and there would be small instances where she'd leave me in a room by myself and would hear me giggling like I was talking with someone. I'd be sitting in a corner facing the wall and no one would be there. One day she went out to get groceries, left me at home, and my grandmother was in the backyard gardening. When she came home 15 minutes later with the groceries, she walked into the house and heard a man's voice saying,
"I wish I knew you better, Samantha."
Then me responding,
"I wish I knew you more too. Where are you though?"
Then a muffled,
"Well, we'll be on the same side one day."
My mom said she was trying to convince herself I was talking to the TV. Then she walked more into the house, then heard a man's voice again saying,
"Don't tell your mother about this. It'll scare her."
So she thought someone broke into the house, dropped the groceries, and ran to her bedroom where I was. I was sitting on the floor facing the corner wall. The TV wasn't on, the windows were locked, and I was alone. At this point, I had said,
"Hi, Mommy, we have to go to the cemetery."
There was a cemetery right down the street. Me being only 4, my mom had yet to take me there. So she walked me to the cemetery and I led her to the very back where my grandfather was buried. My mom was in utter disbelief. I just looked at her and said,
"Grandpa doesn't want you to be scared. He said not to tell you, but I think you'll understand. He told me that you shouldn't feel guilty about the fight you two got into right before he passed away."
That almost made me cry.
"He forgave you automatically and hopes you can forgive him as well."
Oh my gosh. She just started crying on the grass and hugging me. She just started saying, "The next time you talk to him, tell him I will not be scared and I forgave him years ago." So a few weeks passed. My mom was in the basement doing laundry and we were the only ones in the house. She heard me upstairs playing and yelling,
"Grandpa is back, Mommy."
So she quickly ran upstairs, sat next to me facing the corner wall in the living room. I was able to have them communicate through me. He told me to tell her that he couldn't stay there and watch over me forever. At some point, I won't be able to see him any longer, and I'd have a very challenging life. He made her promise to never give up on me because in my late 20s, I'd figure myself out. Sure as shit enough, she never gave up through all my complications in life. She's one of my best friends, and I'm now in my late 20s and had figured out what I want to do with the rest of my life. I've had my mom verify this story recently to my boyfriend in our group chat because he found it far-fetched. This one almost made me cry. This one was so sweet. That has to be one of my favorite follower stories I've ever read. This one was from Epic J.R. Wilson. When I was 11, my grandmother passed away and left my mom a house in Aztec, New Mexico. My parents decided to move us from Worcester, Massachusetts to try and give us a better life. Don't yell at me for saying it wrong, please. I know you're gonna yell at me, never mind. After moving in, it became hard for me to make friends since I was always socially awkward. I met a kid that lived down our road named Ryan, and he had a brother named Zach. We would hang out all the time and play video games, watch TV, and have a great time. When I first came over to their home, I met their mother Rose and was given a tour of their home. It was the usual 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, triple wide that you would see in that area. Nothing interesting, except one bedroom was lined wall to wall with shelves which held these very old porcelain dolls. In the middle of the room, there was an old rocking chair painted white with a human-sized porcelain doll. The doll had long brown hair, hazel eyes, and wore a red and white dress. The doll's lips were painted red, and there was a copy of Lewis Carroll's Alice Through the Looking Glass laid on her lap as if she had just finished reading herself a bedtime story. I asked Rose why she had a room full of dolls and admitted that it was kind of creepy, and she told me that she inherited the collection from her mother. I told her how the large doll in the chair was exceptionally creepy, and she told me that her mother had that doll made before she was born. Rose's mother had a daughter named Bethany, Beth for short, that got sick and passed away when she was 8 years old, and she couldn't bear not being with her daughter. After Bethany's cremation, her mother took her to the town's doll maker and had him make a doll that resembles Bethany as she was when she was alive, using her real hair that she had shaved off of her daughter's head before the cremation. The doll maker made the doll with the exact specifications that Rose's mother had wanted, and when the doll was completed, she sewed her daughter's ashes into the body of the doll. Rose said that she would never get rid of the doll collection or bury her sister's ashes because she believes that Bethany is still with them, and sometimes you can hear her if you listen carefully. I never stayed the night at Ryan and Zach's house, and when I would come over, I would never walk into Bethany's room. If her spirit is there, I would rather give her the privacy that she deserves. That one is so crazy, like, but also kind of beautiful. I think doing that, I don't know, kind of beautiful. This one is someone who's kind of experiencing something that is unsettling to them, and if anyone knows more about it in the comments or can help them, definitely comment in this video. Hi, this isn't like super scary, but I thought you might think it was interesting. I swear, like, my entire family doesn't believe me, but I can't make this shit up. I've had multiple instances of me dreaming of someone before they die. One, I guess this wasn't before, but it is the most wholesome. My grandpa and I were never ever very close. He had an estranged relationship with my mom as well as an abusive past. However, when I did see him, I knew him as a very sad man. I can't describe it. His aura was just so blue. After he died, I would learn how hard his life was. He was abused as a child, forced to take on a parental role for his siblings, and lost the love of his life to cancer. After he passed away, I had a dream, and in this dream, I was sitting in the dining room of my childhood home talking to my family. He walked in and sat at the seat next to me. It was clear that no one else could see him but me. I remember that blue aura I had known my entire life was gone. He was glowing. He looked so happy. He took my hand and smiled at me. I will never ever forget how warm and happy his smile was. He said nothing but walked out of the room into the light. I feel like this was his way of saying goodbye to me. 2, I've had multiple pets pass away, and before I am made aware of it, somehow I will just know. My childhood cat Andy was very old and sick. I remember one day walking home with my brother after getting off the bus and saying to him, you know, Andy is going to pass away soon. Of course, he got mad and yelled at me, but as soon as we got home and walked into the garage, something in me just knew for certain. Sure enough, my parents sat me and my brother down and told us Andy had passed away, and they found him passed away in the garage. A similar experience when I was in maybe 7th grade, my dad called the school to tell me to walk home instead of going to volleyball practice. I remember saying to my friends, I think my dog has passed away. Sure enough, when I got home, my dad told me that later we were going to have to put our dog down. 3, this is the creepiest one that gives me chills every time I think about it. About a year ago, I was on vacation with my dad visiting family. I remember the entire day I couldn't get this image out of my head. It was me unaliving my cat, who I love more than anything. The thoughts manifested into dreams as well. I remember feeling physically ill and awful because I couldn't get this picture out of my head. When I got home, my mom informed me that she hadn't seen our cat for a few days, and my cat never returned. I would love for someone more spiritual to tell me what this means, as I am low-key scared and confused. Thank you. So if anyone has any ideas, definitely say so in the comments. This one is from the girl behind the scenes. Hi, my name is Sarah, and when I was about 3, my mom noticed I started to talk to someone. She and my sister were talking in the kitchen when they heard me talking. When they got to my room, they found me sitting at a corner, facing the corner, and having full conversations with someone or something they couldn't see. When they asked me, who are you talking to? I turned my head to them and said, oh, no one. Fast forward to a couple of days after that, my mom was in the shower. The house being old, the bathroom not having great ventilation in the bathroom, you can feel when someone opens the door. My mom felt cold air go up her side, and she swears up and down that it felt like a hand going up her side. Other weird things happened in the house, even the dreams I was having. One particular one was very vivid. When we gave my grandmother's dresses to my aunt, everything seemed to stop at once. My dad's mom passed away before I was born, and that's who I was talking to and dreaming about. 20 years later, my grandfather, Dad's dad, passed away in 2020, never meeting my nephew, who is now the same age as I was when we had paranormal experiences, except now we believe that my grandfather is sticking around to see the great-grandson he didn't get to meet. My nephew says there is a ghost in his closet, and there have been times when I've heard him talking to someone when he is by himself in the room. So far, nothing else has happened, but we will see. Feel free to use this story of mine, as I have always thought it was interesting and creepy to see similarities between me and my nephew. This story is from Moonlit Rose. I wanted to share a story that happened to me. I am still working on being able to talk to or see spirits, but this one is what made me really believe. When I was with my ex-wife, we stayed at her mother's one weekend, and I went to take a nap. When I did, I went into a sleep paralysis state and had a young girl bending over me like an inch away from my face. She backed away, blonde hair, blue-eyed, and had another shorter girl next to her, brunette but same blue eyes. However, they were wearing period clothing similar to Anne of Green Gables type dresses, blue with a white apron over them. They just stared at me right in the eyes, standing there. They didn't do anything. Then I woke up. Very few believe me, but I saw it as clear as day. Scared me hardcore. Sleep paralysis experiences feel so supernatural and are terrifying. This one is from Totally Not Shrek 69. This is one of a couple experiences I've had. My parents and I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment when I was roughly 12 or 13. I can't remember exactly when, but I know it was on a weekend. I woke up that morning/afternoon like usual, facing the wall my bed was up against, but out of nowhere, I felt a presence behind me and I heard a little girl say, "Mommy." No, thank you. And I heard a little girl say "mommy" multiple times, like she was singing Ring Around the Rosie. Abort! That's terrifying. At that point, I was petrified with fear and couldn't bring myself to move for what felt like an hour, even after the entity/presence stopped singing. Now, I could be wrong, but what was crazy/terrifying was that years later, when I was stationed in Japan, I woke up one morning and I think I was experiencing sleep paralysis, and what I saw was a girl with long black hair that covered her face. I'm not exactly sure, but part of me felt like it was the same girl as the one that freaked me out before. I could not only feel her anger, but also see it in a way. I say that because while I was still paralyzed, I felt and saw everything around me shake, and the light outside the window was quickly becoming red. I then woke up when it reached the climax, almost as if something was about to happen to me, but something woke me up before it could happen. Now, I'm still not 100% sure if something was actually going to happen to me, but it was still pretty terrifying regardless. Totally get that. Sleep paralysis is so freaking terrifying. People who don't experience it don't really understand how terrifying it is to not only wake up and realize that your entire body is completely paralyzed, you can't move a muscle, but also that there's something either supernatural happening or some like weird creature or entity in the room with you. It is honestly horrifying. This one is from Peyton Olivia 8. Hi, I don't know if you take submissions or stories or if you would consider this one. However, I would still love to share this with you. So I had a really weird experience while I was staying at a relative's house, which was an older house. The room I was staying in freaked me out because there was a lot of old trinkets and such in there, and walking in it felt like there was something in there with me. I went to bed, and next to the bed was a tall dresser next to it. I woke up feeling like I was being watched, and I turned over to the dresser. On top of the dresser was a black figure crouched down looking at me. I screamed, and I'm a loud person, so I figured it would be heard. Here's the really freaky part. I turned my phone flashlight on and I could see the figure's skin was pale and gray, as well as very skinny. After that, I immediately left the room and went out on the couch. This is terrifying. I left the door open and eventually fell asleep. When I woke up the next day, the room's door was shut. I asked my family if they heard me scream, and they said no, so I thought it was a dream, but I wasn't set on that yet. Since I turned my flashlight on my phone, I could look at my phone to tell me if the flashlight was turned on at some point. My phone showed that I had picked it up at night to use the flashlight. Also, on top of the dresser, the dust was moved as if something was sitting there. That's terrifying. I'm not really sure what I saw, but most people say when they have sleep paralysis, they can't move and the figure is more of a shadow. So whatever I saw might not have been sleep paralysis, but I never found out. If you read this, thank you so much for your time, and I really enjoy your videos. Thank you so much. That doesn't sound like sleep paralysis because it doesn't sound like you were paralyzed. And that is a scary freaking story. Like, I wouldn't stay at that relative's house again. I'm just saying. This next story is from Chelsea922. Hey, you're probably not gonna see this, but I have a scary story I've experienced. I'm seeing it, girl. So I was in 4th grade when my best friend passed away. I'm so sorry. At first it didn't really click, but then like a month later it did. I've always been in love with the paranormal and would always watch scary movies and read scary stories, etc. One day I was at a party at my mom's friend's house. I got bored and snuck off with a few friends. We were all playing Truth or Dare. I just started to zone out, but I always zone out. So to my friends, this was nothing new, but this wasn't just a normal zone out. My friends said that I was looking back and forth. I don't remember that. They shook me to wake me up. I did, but then I heard my name being called and I thought it was my mom, so I said I would be right back. I walked off, and right when I turned a corner, I saw a person. Me being me, I screamed, but when I took a closer look, it was my friend that passed away in 4th grade. Mind you, it was nighttime, so I was shook, but she didn't say anything. Then my friends came over and I said, look, and they said, at what? I turned around to look at them, then looked back and she was gone. I told them and they said that they didn't know. I know that this isn't really scary, but for 4th grade me, it really was. That is scary. I would have been terrified. This story is from Shauna Rose W16. When I was 3, I had an imaginary friend named Elizabeth. She would drag me into the woods in the middle of the night. I would have night terrors. I fucking guess so. Jesus. I would have random scratches all over my body. Well, my mom noticed and she didn't feel right about it. That's fair. This went on for maybe a year. My family isn't very religious, but my grandmother went to the woodline of our house and prayed and used holy water across the whole thing. Everything stopped after that. But when I met my sister Bella, that's a long story, I told her about it and she said the same thing happened to her on her first day of 6th grade. And when my little sister Jasmine was playing outside with me and my grandmother, remember there was nobody and nothing there, she waved at the woods and said, "Hey," and we took her and ran inside. There's been a lot of paranormal activity happening around my house and it's really creepy. And it's happened to almost all of my mom's kids and it's the same interaction every time. It's kind of weird but so scary at the same time. That is really weird and scary. What would be causing that for all of the same siblings? It's interesting. So this story is from Anonymous. Hello. I don't know if you'll see this, but I just wanted to share something I've experienced. Back in 6th grade, I was sitting in front of my classroom door. Keep in mind, the door was open that day so you could see into the hallway. Everything was fine until I started rubbing my eyes. When I opened them, I saw a really tall lady standing in the hallway. She had a long white dress, kind of dirty, a really big beach hat, and long black greasy hair. She was really pale too. I freaked out, but when I blinked again, she was gone. I was really paranoid the rest of the day, but I just forgot about it a few days later. A couple weeks passed, maybe a month, and I saw her again, but this time in my dream, I was in an abandoned school. It was really old and torn down. I walked around until I found a light switch and turned the lights on. When the lights were on, the school looked normal. Kids were walking in the hallway, going to their classes. I looked around when I saw that same lady on the floor crying. I came up to her, but then an alarm started to go off. Everyone was running and it was just pure chaos. When I looked back at the girl, everything went back to the rusty old abandoned school and I saw she was covered in red stuff and still crying. I woke up and couldn't sleep the rest of the night. That is a good creepy story. This next one is from Bookish Witch. So when I was living in a duplex with my mom, I would see orbs, hear tapping on the walls, have demonic nightmares, and one day I had a boyfriend come over to do a ritual to find out who was in our duplex. We drew a symbol, I can't remember now, and had a candle placed on either side. After this, the activity increased. This is why you shouldn't do rituals unless you're like a seasoned practitioner. I am not a seasoned practitioner. I'm new, so I shall not be doing any rituals without a seasoned practitioner present. No shade to this person though. I love this person. This is a cool girl. And you know, people do this when they're kids. And I mean, it happens. People do this when they're adults and it happens. I started feeling my bed shake, saw shadows, always felt scared to be alone in the house. And one night while at my computer, I got the feeling I wasn't alone. And in my head, I just knew that if I looked behind me, I would see two awful creatures or entities. I ran to my mom's room and slept with her that night, then began staying at the neighbors because I was so afraid to be in that house. We eventually moved and the spirit followed us. I heard knocking on the walls, footsteps, and more until finally the activity died down. I still have creepy nightmares, but as a witch, I've begun regularly cleansing myself and seems to be working in holding off unwanted spirits. That's terrifying. This one is from Anonymous. When I was 5, I lived in a trailer with my mom, my dad, my older sister, my older brother, and my younger sister. And for reference, the trailer only had 2 rooms, so me and my mom and my younger sister slept on the couch. The couch faced the kitchen, and I could also see a little of my brother's room in the bathroom. One night I woke up at around 3 a.m. and saw this girl by the kitchen. It was definitely not my sister because she had long black hair, and my sister at that time had pretty blonde hair. The girl would walk to me but never reach me. That lasted about 1 hour, and I was paralyzed with fear. Then my brother turned on the lights to go to the bathroom, and she was gone. This still scares me to this day. This one is from Amelia Zubik. Here's my story. When I was 10 years old, I was at a sleepover with 5 other girls at my friend's house who had 2 younger brothers. Everything was good until we heard a sound in the kitchen. We went downstairs to see what it was, and we saw a boy in a red hoodie. We started to chase him, but the moment we surrounded him, only to notice that he completely vanished. We started to call her brothers' names as though we thought it was one of them. At this moment, her parents came back from a supermarket with her brothers who were wearing black hoodies. They've told us that we were alone this whole time. I don't know who that boy was, but it still scares me to this day, and I know that the other girls have the same feeling about it. It's been 9 years since that happened, and 2 days ago, I was going back from the train station and it was dark. I was walking and saw a boy in a red hoodie walking, and then he vanished. I don't know if that was the same thing as in her house, but I must admit that it was really disturbing. That's a weird one. This one is from Anonymous. It started when I was around 10 and I was trying to get to sleep. It was dark, so it wasn't a shadow, and my desk chair was facing my bed, and I saw a dark figure sitting on the chair. I didn't think much, then the chair moved slightly. I shined my phone to it, nothing was there. Fast forward to last year, the figures and sounds started happening again. It started by me seeing a tall shadow figure standing at my bedroom door in the middle of the night, as well as hearing sounds down in my house. Then one night was bad when I heard a female speaking in front of my bedroom window, and it was like the middle of the night, so it couldn't be anyone in my house. I have synthetic grass, and I heard the sound of shoes walking on it a little bit after the talking. And some other nights I've heard loud, heavy breathing next to my window or quiet taps. But most of the time it happens is when I'm by myself and I have my dog in the room, nothing would happen. When my friends are over or when I'm on a call, nothing happens. Whatever it was, it's quiet now, but here and there I see shadows. I've chosen to ignore it, and I forgot to add, but there are some occasions I've woken up with bruises in sort of weird places around my arms and shoulders. I don't know what it is. And then they messaged me again and said, sorry if I'm being annoying, but just last night the noises were back. I heard creaking on the floorboards. I went to my sister, but she says it wasn't her. We were both standing on the carpet. We both heard the creak again, but there was no one there. Anyways, that's it for this one. Stay spooky.